we started a little bit behind. We experienced, can you guess it, some technical difficulties trying to get started. So thank you so much for your patience while we worked out some of those kinks. We had Michael with us. He was on mute, could not figure it out, and he unfortunately doesn't know sign language. So, well, actually, I don't know if you don't know sign language or not, but I think that would have been a little difficult to digest for this webinar. Yeah. But thank you so much for your patience, everyone. We are going to kick off. I know we lost 2 or 3 people. We'll catch them in the email recap. So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. If you would mind popping that into the chat, just so you know, just so we can know that you're hearing us okay, that you can see us okay. And we're gonna get started. Yeah, Ryan's in Boulder. Got some Denver, Portland folks. All right. Thank you so much. Ooh, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Nice. From New York. Cool. Well, welcome to the Social Media Happy Hour. I'm Chris with the Cloud Campaign team. Michael, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Michael. I'm with TextUs. So I'll be representing the SMS side of this bout.
All right. Yes. And today we're diving into SMS versus SMM, which is better for driving customer engagement. But before we get too far into it, Michael, can you give us just a quick intro of who you are and what TextUs provides as far as services go?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man. Yeah, excited to be here. And again, sorry for joining a little late, but here we are. My name is Michael. I am a marketing manager here at TextUs. TextUs is a one-to-many and one-to-one business SMS provider, working all throughout different use cases: sales, marketing, recruiting, workforce management. So excited to talk today. I love seeing where everybody's from. I live in Golden, Colorado. I do a little bit picking on the banjo, not as cool as the stand-up bass, I might say, and I'm probably not as good. So that's a little bit about me.
I would disagree with that. I know the banjo is a very difficult instrument to play and very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Also want to do just a little bit of housekeeping before we get too far in. If this is your first time joining our webinars, you can use the chat to pop in questions or share any insights that you've gained through your marketing experience. We'd love to hear them. Also, if somebody asks a question and you feel like you got a good answer, please, love to see that cross collaboration. So feel free to jump in. If we've got some time at the end, we also will do a Q&A. So we'll just see where we end up with a little bit of a late start. Afterwards, I also will be sending out a recording of this webinar along with some of the handouts and links that we discussed today. And also, I'm going to share a quick poll in the chat. So can you let us know in the poll if you're currently using business text messaging in your current service offerings? So I'd love to know just kind of where people are with that. Give me a second. I'm just going to pop that into the polls. So love to see your responses. All right. With that out of the way, it is gloves off for a battle royale. Which marketing tactic drives more engagement, SMS or SMM? I'm kidding, of course, Michael, but we do have 2 very similar acronyms going on here that we're dealing with. Can you just give us a quick breakdown of what we're actually talking about so we're all on the same page?
Yeah. Before I do, I know people are filling out the poll. So while you guys are in that right-hand side, can anybody really quick, who's the first person to know what SMS stands for? I had this pop into my head earlier and I was like, I think everyone knows, but I'm not sure. So what does SMS stand for? Anybody know? And also MMS too. That one's interesting. So I see a simple messaging service. Anybody else? That's close. There it is. Short messaging service, which we'll see is kind of the key to a successful SMS strategy. MMS is a multimedia messaging service, by the way, which is just images. So yeah, the way I look at these 2 acronyms, SMM and SMS, social media I view as like a virtual hub or like city bustling with activity and conversation. And obviously you're leveraging that ecosystem to facilitate, business communication. Pretty straightforward, right? We're all marketers here. And SMS, obviously everyone knows because we all have these in our pockets that we check probably more than we'd like to admit. But I view SMS as kind of like this magical gateway that allows you to instantly connect with your customer or end user. And so really what I'm looking forward to discussing today is how they differ, but also how they're similar and how you can how they can both be important parts of an overall marketing strategy.
Nice. Yeah. And so like, I think that's a great way to encapsulate it. Our social media marketing is that kind of big megaphone to build that brand awareness, kind of foster customer loyalty. We're shouting, and it's a big wide net. And I think that SMS is more of the, as you start to catch some of those fish, you're kind of filtering through. Yeah, this is the fish that I want. If you'll pardon the fishing analogy. So let's talk about that and the engagement and driving those meaningful conversations. Can you kind of dive into a little bit more of like how do they differ? Where in the funnel specifically do we start to see some of the separations?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when thinking of marketing strategy, you have to look, if you're looking at funnel, whether it's sales funnel, marketing funnel, social media is going to pretty much always sit at the top there, right? It's kind of what's dictating your brand voice, getting people interested and understanding of who your brand is. And then you see SMS a little bit farther down the funnel. So like mid to lower funnel. And that's where we really see SMS, take the reins a little bit in terms of converting people from let's say SQL or MQL to opportunity to close one. And so that's kind of the way I look at it, and that's kind of how we treat it at TextUs. Our social media is very top of the funnel. We get people to trip through maybe some content downloads, and then hopefully a demo request, and then we continue the conversation through SMS. And that's kind of how they differ.
Okay. Well, so if you're comparing these two technologies then, and maybe there's a little bias here, but like if we're duking it out, which of these two technologies do you think is better for driving that customer engagement?
Yeah, I think it just depends at the where in the funnel, I think. But if we're talking about like engagement responses, I have to say SMS. I'm biased, obviously, but when I like to compare SMS to email a lot, right? So everybody, we got marketers here. What's a good email open rate these days? Maybe 15%, maybe 20% with a highly engaged group. SMS, you're at 98% of messages are read, right? And opened and read. Yeah, which is pretty wild. And this isn't even talking about campaign versus one-to-one. I actually, when we were trying to figure out this webinar, I actually got a text from a 10-digit long code about the upcoming election as we're doing. So we're already seeing some people use it incorrectly, in my opinion. But yeah, so I think I will have to say SMS there. And talking about engagement rates too, I'm happy to share a little bit. I brought some data to today, and I'd like to maybe crank into this deck, and we can kind of talk about engagement if that's cool with you.
Yeah, show us some numbers, and just anecdotally too. I'm thinking about like kind of our performance for our email marketing. We have a very engaged community, and I think we hit up to like maybe 25%, 28% on like a good email campaign in terms of click through and engage. So it's like being able to hit up to 98%, that efficacy is fantastic. So that's really cool.
100%. And I think everyone's also of the same opinion. Like it kind of year over year, it's just decreasing. You have to be so targeted with your message with email now, especially as like GDPR and all that starts to tighten a little bit. But yeah, so here's some interesting stats, right? So from our research, basically, cold email response rate. Let's talk response rates for the time being, since we touched on open. Cold email response rate is 5%. I don't know about you guys, but that seems high to me. Like cold email response rates are usually much lower than 5%. Whereas SMS, depending on campaign versus conversational, you're sitting at 12% or almost 50%. And that's messages received back from a campaign. So that's pretty mind blowing when you compare it to a close competitor of communication like email.
Nice. And kind of circling back to the the engagement versus SMS and SMM, we're also looking just like the type of engagement, the quality. I do think that the engagement you get on social media, I don't want to say it's superficial, because that's not the right word, but it is more sort of a tire kicker. Like you might get a like, or that's cool, or just something kind of more superficial. Whereas with text message, you're a lot closer to the action you want to get them to take. So I think understanding the differences there of just like the quality and the type of engagement is really good to keep in mind.
100%. Yeah. And, that brings me like to talking about the rule of 7, which is like something that we talk a lot about in our sales playbook, which, it's basically, fun fact, this was invented in the 1930s by a popular movie studio, Disney, or one of them. But it's basically the idea that everybody needs 7 touches before they debate purchasing, right? And so yes, I understand where you're coming from with the social media. It's sometimes maybe a little bit more superficial, but really what you're doing is just getting a foot in the door so that by the time that they're lower down in the funnel of touches, like touch 7 or 8, and by the time you can get to send them an SMS, they've basically almost made up their mind that they're going to go with you or go with a competitor. So that's like an interesting part about engagement between the two as well.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up that rule of 7, because that's something that I learned when I was going to marketing school. Just you really need to hammer the message home multiple times. And I think the great thing about being able to combine some of these strategies together is it gives you better opportunities to craft the right message for the right level, meeting people where they're at the time. You cast that broad net to kind of let people know, hey, we're doing this thing. And as people show that engagement, you can drive deeper and richer engagement and so Michelle just popped in, omni-channel marketing, taking the words right out of my mouth. Thank you for that. And Tanner brought up a question that we might want to jump into real quick, or we can save it for later. Looking at the unsubscribe rate for SMS compared to email. And I have a little follow-up question for you on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, and by the way, I love questions like while we're talking, because if we can not go through like our maybe some talking points that we had and just answer questions, I'd be way happy. So this is a great question. It's basically about, what does unsubscribe rate for SMS, which we call opt-outs, right? So in the SMS world, 2 most important things: opt-in and opt-out. So you're not spamming folks. So I actually did pull report just out of our own data before coming here, and I will share that with you here because it's pretty interesting. It actually breaks it down by industry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so when you look at overall conversational opt-out rate, it's going to be much lower than campaign opt-out rate, which makes a lot of sense, right? Even though, like, as TextUs, we try to whoever we partner with, we try to ensure that they're not sending out 1,000-person campaigns and kind of more or less spamming folks. We like people to be way more targeted. But even with that like campaign target approach, you're still getting higher opt-outs, which basically just speaks to the quality of the end user that you're trying to reach. And so, yeah, here you see 1.86% opt-out rate, and then 0.5% conversational, which is crazy. This is for 2023, by the way. And then, yeah, we can just also look at the highest opt-out rates for each industry, which I think is really interesting. Energy and environmental, not sure what they're doing wrong, but they're leading the charge. And then I'm sure people can relate to the next one, which is nonprofit and civic. So the text I just got about the upcoming election, and then computer hardware, banks, and corporate services round out the bottom there.
I think with the rising cost of energy, I know my gas bill is just like, whoa, we put solar panels on a roof and we're still paying almost more for gas. So maybe that has something to do with driving that sector. Thank you. That's great data. And I think those really low numbers, especially in the conversational opt-out, is really interesting to see. It shows that, if you have the right message and you're being more personal, like there's a lot more efficacy there. So I've got a Google phone, and I like it because it helps me screen calls and texts that I do not want. I also believe Apple devices, at least I know, have ad blockers, which has been the bane of many a marketer trying to track performance in certain areas. Can you comment on anything like that might affect SMS performance that marketers might need to be aware of if they're trying to roll this as complementary services to their portfolio?
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought that up. So recent years, I don't know if everybody remembers like the GDPR rollout, right? Where you had to basically everybody that comes to your site, you have to let them know that you're tracking more or less. And that was like a big disruption for email. SMS saw that about 2 years ago as well with a program called 10DLC. 10DLC stands for 10-digit long code. And it's what differentiates a a number versus short code. So when you get a text and it's from a retail, let's say it's from Kohl's, gotta love the Kohl's cash, and they say, hey, come in for a promo for 20% more Kohl's cash. That's most likely going to come from a short code, right? Those are adopted by these much larger companies that are blasting out hundreds of thousands of texts. It's way more expensive. And it's also way easier to get, a spam report, honestly. And then you have 10DLC. And so what the national carriers are rolling out with 10DLC is ensuring that more or less that you are a real person and you're not some just spam shop that's, sending out, it could be like harmful codes to anything, name your pick, right? To any spam messages. And so the main ways to stay compliant is you end up registering for a 10DLC registration, right? Which basically is just so they can see on your site that you're a real site that does business, that needs to be texting your end user. And then you need to stay compliant, right? So once you get compliance, you need to maintain compliance every year. And so, yeah, what that looks like is honestly setting expectations internally on how to use and utilize SMS, texting during appropriate times, keeping the text 100 characters or less, have some cool data that we'll touch on that, or using branded links, right? So there's a lot of ways to stay compliant and not be marked as spam. But you'll hear 10DLC more and more in the coming years.
Cool. So I'm still learning a lot about text message marketing in terms of how it works. So forgive me if this is a naive question, but is it similar to when you're starting an email marketing list and you have to go through certain steps to kind of warm up that list to make sure it's, oh, excuse me, I bumped my mic. Warming up your list in terms of not being flagged for spam and kind of building that trust or that authority with email providers so you don't get flagged? Is it similar?
Yeah, it actually goes one step further. So really, you don't really want to be texting people unless they've opted in at some point, right? So for instance, TextUs, when we have certain high-performing content pieces or our demo or pricing forms, we'll have a checkbox on that form that says, is it okay to follow up via text? If you check that, then you've opted in to receiving communication from us. Another big one too is when you schedule a meeting. When you schedule a meeting, I'm sure a lot of people now are figuring this out with Calendly or HubSpot. That also can be viewed as an opt-in. And so, we definitely recommend only sending SMS or text messages to folks that have opted in. So it goes one step further than the email, where you can kind of blast a little bit and be I think most of these people came in through a good channel, or so that's kind of where we sit.
Okay. So it definitely is just making sure that you have that permission, making sure you build a solid list of folks that really are receptive to being messaged by you.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, speaking of this, I'm a marketer. I think in terms of campaigns and things like that. So I'm curious, what does this look like executing this type of strategy? What does that look like from a campaign standpoint at a high level?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it can look very similar, honestly, to an email campaign and also an email workflow, right? So I'm sure all of us have different tools that we utilize for smart workflows. And it's the same with SMS. Ideally, right, let's say you're using it for a marketing use case and you're working with a retailer and they want to send a list of recent purchases of this one purse, right? So they have a list of 100 people. They've also opted into email. So you know that they have interest. You can basically upload those 100 people into a list to send a campaign message, whether it's a one-off campaign message or you throw them into a workflow that sends them, text every 1, 2, 3 days, whatever you, deem appropriate. And so that's kind of really all there is to it in terms of campaign SMS versus conversational. So I'll bring back up this deck here because I do want to touch on some more data just because I kind of geek out on it. But when looking at campaign versus conversational, I think it's also extremely important to understand the distinction of strategy, right? So in that retail use case, you would be blasting out to 100 people, let's say, a responsible list, and you get 5 folks that text back and they say, hey, I'm interested. I'd like to claim a coupon, right? They can then an individual sales rep or marketing rep or whoever can then take the conversation and continue it one-on-one, which is really cool. And I think that leads to a lot of these numbers that I can touch on really quick if that's okay with you.
Yeah, just do it. We're marketers. We love data.
Yeah. So we see campaign messages are growing, right? More and more people are getting more comfortable, I'd say, sending blast SMS, which is good and bad, right? If you are a responsible marketer, the folks have opted in and you're approaching them with a relevant message, then that campaign's going to have high success. More often than not, though, like, is that always the case? Yes and no. We definitely see this in the data. So I pulled 2 reports here with our customers that are in the healthcare space and then staffing, right? And so you see here just the overall response or reply rate based on the type of message. So this is really kind of what it comes down to. Like, as marketers, what do we see here? That conversational gets higher engagement, right? So your strategy should be revolved around how can we take people from the top of the funnel with social media, get them dripped with content or some download, and then how can we get them as quickly as possible into a conversational cadence, right? And so, yeah, I just think that's really interesting. I mean, it's such a massive divide here between a conversational and campaign. And then I think what we're both getting to with this call as well is like, what's the best strategy, SMM or SMS? It's really both, right? And you approach that the same way with conversational and campaign messaging. And so I love this graph because it's showing that, staffing is doing it right. They are kind of balancing it really well, where half of they're blasting out campaigns, right? Let's not use the word blast. They're sending out campaigns and then they're continuing those conversations on a one-to-one basis. So it's really, really good to see that people are taking it to heart and seeing success there. So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really blown away when I saw the like the juxtaposition between that conversational versus more of a generalized, or like, I don't want to say generic copy, but that more like marketing copy. I think just it really goes to show that driving that personal connection with your prospects through your brand is an effective approach. And especially when you're, I don't know, I view if you're contacting me on my phone, that's a very intimate, like personal, very close touch. And I screen a lot, pretty aggressively. So if I allow you into that area of my life, it makes sense that you should be viewed as a human person. I take an empathy first approach to my marketing as much as possible, to really try and cater to the needs and the desires of who I'm trying to serve. And I think that those data points really back that up. So it's just really cool to see that. Got a couple questions coming in from Rena. Can this be used post-client meetings to get reviews? Great question. And would you recommend SMS to get reviews?
Yes and yes, 100%. It's 100% the most effective way to get reviews, I think, because you're one of the biggest things with SMS is the immediacy of it, right? And so if you're getting to someone right after they've had a positive brand experience, they're 90% more likely to leave a review, I think, and especially if it comes through SMS and they can just do it on their phone. So if you make it extremely easy for them, yes, 100%, I'd recommend it. We have a ton of customers that do that. Whether it's driving them to like a G2 or driving them just to like a Google form or a Google review. It's a super effective way to get the reviews.
Yeah. And it's super easy to make that personal with those personalization tokens. Hey, Rena, we saw that you purchased this service from us. We really want to know if we met the mark. Could you leave us a review and let us know how we did? Like, yeah, that's a nice, easy ask. It's pretty low barrier. And, you might have your own personal opinions on whether to incentivize that with something, but I think that's a great way to reach people on a very personal level, and let them know that you care about their satisfaction. I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, it's a great question. That's a great question. And honestly, I mean, I think that relates really well to like how you can bridge the gap with SMS and SMM and how they can kind of like play off one another. It's a really interesting conversation to have too. It's like, I've seen a couple customers do this really, really well. And there's like three main ways that they're using like their social media presence to boost their SMS presence. And so those main three ones that I love, they're like, kind of like promoting engagement. So they're doing promos throughout their social media, omni-channel marketing. Boom, Michelle, I think that was you that said that. And then they're getting folks to come over to SMS by saying, hey, text this number promo to get your 50% off coupon, right? Once they do that, they've opted in at that point, right? They're texting you, and so they're saying that they're open to communication with you as well. So that's a great way to increase your SMS list, and that's the next great way of building kind of like a subscriber base, right? And so offering like exclusive content through text messaging or having offers where they're going to get that offer once they text is really effective. And then, the other one that's really excited to talk about, which I know you guys are all social media folk, and is the influencer campaigns. I think that's really, really cool what people are doing. And we actually work with a couple agencies that are doing some really, really cool things in the SMS space, utilizing like their influencers and their influencers' massive reach. We see this. There's one example right now that I really love, and I'm sure you guys have been scrolling Instagram and seen like the home decor influencer, right? Where it's like IKEA hack, and this is how I make an IKEA thing. This like comment link. You'll see this more and more. They're saying comment link in the comments, and then they're sending them, they're DMing them an affiliate code. Well, what this agency is doing with their influencers is now having them text their affiliate code. Mm-hmm. And then that unlocks a whole new way of getting in touch with your end user base, which is really, really cool. It's like such a powerful way to translate like the social media following into like this SMS following that you can have like really quick action on. So that's one way that I thought was really cool.
I don't know. I feel like as marketers, we have this love-hate relationship with the influencer. I use air quotes, influencers, and trying to build campaigns with them. I know we've tried it. We focus more on smaller, more niche influencers and have had success there. But the reality is it's a $21 billion industry. That's billion. It's huge market opportunity. And again, they can give you a direct and authentic link to an attractive audience for you to reach. But it can be tough finding the right influencer to match that. And some are more difficult than others to work with, and some might demand more compensation than others. So it's an interesting strategy to try, especially with what you said, trying to build that SMS mailing list or messaging list rather. Mm-hmm. And just, if we're doing that, just remember, if your Instagram has a better return on investment, TikTok is going to elevate your overall engagement. So those are two of the main platforms that marketers have been focusing on for influencer. YouTube is also an amazing channel, but just something more to build that robust marketing strategy, I think is really cool. I do want to pull on one thread a little bit in terms of the actual messaging that we're crafting. We put a lot of time and effort into the content we create. How is the message that we craft on SMS different than what we would do with social media content?
Yeah, such a good question. I think, both need to be short and sweet, more or less.
Short attention spans, everyone. Goldfish.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that with SMS, but like we have a very interesting graph that shows once you cross the 100 character limit, you lose half of your response rate. So if you keep it under 100 characters, I think you set out about 65% response rate. When it starts to go over 100 characters, you drop to like 35, which is crazy to me that there's such a steep drop off. But I get it. If I glance at my phone from an unknown number and it's a long text, it's an automatic delete more often than not. So that makes a lot of sense there, I guess. But further than that, I think really the personalization it comes down to. I think when you are crafting a good social campaign, yes, you need to know your audience. When you're crafting a SMS campaign, you need to know the person that's getting that text for it to be effective, right? You need to know their exact pain points, their exact position, you just need to be kind of like to the nth degree with it. And so those are two main ways I see SMS differing a little bit, but they do both need to be short and sweet. You're right.
Yeah. And it makes sense because you said shortness, you really need that immediacy, that call to action. But I think that lends itself really well. It's just like, got bed bugs, call us now. You know, it can be as simple as that if that's the pain point. I don't know why that one popped into my head recently. Oh, we have a friend who's training their dogs to do bed bug inspections as a
What?
service, which is really cool.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's apparently it's more effective because they can do like microscopic. I don't want to get too far into it, but that's why. And Michelle commented, half of us have them now in hotels.
Yeah,
That's unfortunate. I'll let you know when our friends get at their dog service ready.
yeah. This is the graph that I was talking about, by the way. I was actually wrong. 73% when you keep it under 100, and then it drops down to 35%, and then over 200, 16%. So just, I mean, wild, the drop off there.
Yeah, and I think again, I just reiterate that really keeping your target in mind and having empathy towards them. Don't send them long stuff to read. They don't want it. Yep. Simple as that. Just be clear, concise, specific, and tell them what you want them to do, and you will go far.
Yeah, I love that you bring it. I love that you've brought up empathy. I do really think it's like the key to marketing nowadays. Like, would you want to receive this random text from somebody? Would you want to receive it? Like, it really just comes down to that, I think. And I think that really dictates your success as a marketer. And so, really, really interesting, I think.
Well, let's talk about some strategy then, because I think, you know, having empathy and knowing when to message, what the message is, and what time or what point in that customer journey is the appropriate place for it. Can you give us just some use cases folks have done with TextUs in terms of like building out the strategies?
Yeah, for sure. So we have kind of like I'll call it 5 or 6 main use cases, right? And so it's really sales, marketing, recruiting or staffing, workforce management / employee engagement. And then we have, white label, which we'll throw in there.
Ooh, magic word.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so each of those I can just touch on briefly, right? Like each needs a different strategy. And each has like a different desired outcome, I'd say, all with engagement in mind. So for a sales strategy, right, we see it best when you're trying to convert your MQLs to opportunities and close one. If you create a strategy where you are getting in front of your buyer at the right time via SMS, you are much more likely to close. We actually have a cool graph on this slide as well, which dictates the ROI of SMS. And I'll just actually bring that up while I'm talking through the marketing stuff, because it makes sense for marketing as well. And so, and then, marketing use cases we see more and more, I would say, are kind of like these promotional, like, yes, they're a little bit more top of funnel, but you still need people opted in to not be spammy, right? And so we see that more and more to establish brand voice. And at the end of the day, like get leads. We see that a lot with our retail customers, I'll say. Let me bring this up too before I go off sales to recruiting, because it's a little bit different. But this is actually from our own data, which I always love, like using our own data because we use our own tool, right? And so from SQL sales qualified lead, right? So this is what we call like a qualified lead that moves past MQL or moves past the marketing stage. And you see here just the difference when they've opted in for SMS, right? So all they did when they filled out a demo form, the people on the right said they're open to SMS, people on the left said they weren't. So the people on the right got our SMS communication. And it's just pretty mind-blowing when you look at the overall effectiveness throughout this sales funnel. It just converts at a higher rate at every stage, more or less, right? So I think like part of that is people that maybe are more interested are saying they're open to getting SMS. And part of it too, I think, is just, actually communicating via text and having deals closed quicker, having questions answered quicker, excuse me. So I really love that piece of data there. And then the other big, strategy or use cases and strategy, we see recruiting, which is just, locking in top talent as quickly as possible. They use our product the most actually right now. And then workforce management, which is really cool. You see it a lot with like logistics, 3PL companies, where their workers aren't checking their email. So they need SMS because they will answer SMS. They won't answer email. That's cool. And then we have white label, which we see a lot with like our OEM side of the business, or, working with larger software companies that want to offer texting that don't want to build it. And so it gets into that build versus buy argument.
Yeah. And I want to pull on that thread here in a second. I do want to revisit the recruiting aspect. because it's at first glance, it doesn't seem like it's applicable to like a marketing or marketing agency standpoint, but there is a pretty decent subsection of our customer base that acts as a reseller or provides their social media management platform that they've white labeled, rebranded Cloud Campaign as their own, providing that to smaller freelancers or localized agencies to offer that. And I kind of see like an opportunity to be able to roll in recruiting in that aspect, trying to bring in new marketers into your platform. Is that something that like, is there any there? Is that something that could be viable? What are your thoughts?
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, at any point in your like day-to-day business operations, if you need engagement and you need it quicker, then it's applicable, right? Like that's kind of how I view it. In terms of that like exact use case, it's a great question. Honestly, I really want to dig in. This has been a really good exercise for me because it's made me dig into our agency customers a little bit more and like really understand what they're using it for, which I have a cool example of one agency that's using TextUs with the white label example. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's 100% viable, and I think that they would see return there.
Nice. So if you're watching right now and that's you, consider rolling in some text strategy to up the efficacy of your recruitment. Get new folks on your platform, get that commission, get that money. That's what we want to see. All right. Well, I did threaten to go back to white label and sort of that integration and making it your own. I'd love to kind of hear how folks have been able to do that within TextUs. And Christina is interested in how the white labeling works. So that's perfect opportunity.
Yeah, sure. So we have a ton of white label customers, right? So it really spans throughout. I'll kind of try to keep it in like an agency format here because I know that's the majority of Cloud Campaign's customers and probably who I'm speaking with on the call. I love this example, Rev Ranch, that we work with. So they white label TextUs and actually just go out and resell with the idea of that they're going to be there like hand in hand. They work a lot in like a very specific niche, I'll call it, and they're experts in that niche, right? And so what they're doing is basically taking their expertise in that niche and then just introducing SMS, selling the white labeled TextUs product under their brand, and then walking through those brands how to use SMS and basically kind of like, and also getting revenue from that as well. So it's like this kind of like double-edged sword, which is really cool, I think.
Double-edged sword in a good way.
In a good way. As I said that, I was like, the negative connotation, but a good, super sharp sword with both sides sharp. So yeah, that's one way that they're using it. And then we work with like, large software companies that just did not want to build out their own SMS solution. And TextUs has been around for a really long time. We were one of the first like movers within SMS. And so the trust is there. And so that's how we've worked with them in that capacity. So it's either kind of like we see it in this like reseller area idea. And then we also see it in this idea where they're just adding it to their like stack of offerings, more or less, which has been really beneficial for them and us as well.
Yeah, and there's like a direct correlation or direct like analogous in terms of our companies and what we offer in terms of our product. Mm-hmm. We want you to white label Cloud Campaign. We want you to make it your whatever you want to call it under your brand, whether that's offering it as part of your own agency services or reselling it, as we just discussed. I think some of the significant value that both of these products offer, and not trying to get into super sales call. This is to provide value. But it really is to give you options to keep your brand consistent, keep it under your own umbrella, but still offer ways to build new revenue streams, to make those services more scalable. Sounds like there's a bunch of automation features through TextUs to be able to release messages within certain criteria are met or timeframes. So it's really just about building it into your portfolio as seamlessly as possible. We do actually have a couple of build or buy guides to kind of illustrate what this looks like. I'm going to share them in the chat for you to download. One is from us, and I'm also going to share one from our friends at TextUs that they put together. So you should be able to see those in the chat. Let me know if they don't appear. But yeah, those are some things. Just if you want to start understanding what it's going to cost to build an SMS messaging platform, there you go. And then Michelle asks, is this offered on the platform? I'm curious, could you give me a little context of what you mean by that so we can maybe more accurately address your question? And otherwise, we'll continue on until we go on. But from your standpoint, Michael, what do you think are the benefits of building SMS into your overall marketing stack?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the answer can be as simple as the fact that, like, if you're not doing it right now, you are behind a little bit. Like SMS, I think, is like maybe 3 years ago, people were like, I don't know, like adding it to the marketing stack. It's a little, I think now, like it's a mission critical piece of a marketing team, right? And so that's one of the biggest ones, honestly. And yeah, further than that, like you will see increased engagement, whether it's good or bad, right? Like while you're figuring out your strategy, it will be increased engagement. And then once you just continue to hone that strategy and where it fits in within your funnel or your offering, it's like a no-brainer. So really, like it kind of needs to be an offering at a certain point if you are in a marketing capacity, in my opinion. Yeah.
And, just from the agencies that I've worked with and have had close discussions with, a lot of them do offer a la carte options, or sometimes that's their only menu in terms of what they offer. They go to their client or prospective client, and they can kind of pick and choose what services they want and build an offering that's customized for each client. So having the ability to offer, even if all of your customers are not using it, it gives you the ability to make a more robust suite of products or services to be able to, again, adding new revenue channels. That's our goal, is to help marketing agencies scale. And this is just another way you can add new ways to add revenue to your stream.
Yeah.
Okay, let's revisit Michelle. She was confused about the webinar. The SMS feature is available on Cloud Campaign, or are you guys partnering? Is there pricing for this feature? Thanks. Okay, that's a great question, and happy to clarify. So we're friends. We're friends. We're colleagues. We're sister companies in some sense, and I think we offer non-competing services that complement each other very well. So we're partnering in the sense that we're trying to bring awareness to this strategy, to this product, to our marketing subscribers, if you're following Cloud Campaign, and want to just kind of be able to show some value in ability to create new revenue streams. And then I think Michael can comment a little more on the pricing, but we'll talk a little bit about integrating services together to build a more robust suite a little bit later. But Michael, I'll give you a chance to maybe comment on, like, what does it cost to do text messaging?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love that this is a disco call. I love being on the other side. It's great. Yeah, so, I hate to be that software person that doesn't answer a pricing question directly, but it really depends. The cool thing about TextUs is we work with folks that like just need one line and only send, 5,000 texts a month or something like that, right? Which in our world is not a lot. And then we work with huge companies that need 50 lines, and each line is sending 20,000 a month, right? Or something similar like that. So pricing is really dependent there. When you are able to communicate like your preferences and what you want at your agency or whatever it is, then you can just get a price really easily. But I actually can't answer because I do not know the specifics. So that's like a little bit about pricing, I'll say. And then in terms of, our offering, just to go back to that as well, we both offer white label, but it's not like a white label together. So I just want to make sure I clarify that. It's like two things that you basically could throw your brand or your logo on and like not resell, but like move forward that way. So that's a little bit about that.
Yeah. And for those of maybe who are just kind of jumping in to see what this is all about, when we refer to white labeling for each of our respective services, we are talking about rebranding the product as your own, so that you have, Michelle's marketing agency's social media management suite branded with your logo, colors, etc. So like we become invisible. You don't know we exist. And that's what we want. We want it to be yours and fully integrated into your stack. That just allows you to charge a higher retainer for your services. It allows you to be positioned as an expert in that field and provide a stellar, seamless service for those types of services. Let us know, Michelle, if we answered your question or if you have any follow-ups for us. In the meantime, I am curious, as we get close to the end, I'm curious how, from a marketing agency standpoint, how would you blend these together strategically? Like when am I going to be doing SMM? When am I going to be SMS? Can you comment a little bit on that?
From from an agency perspective, like when they would offer each, is that kind of what you mean?
Or like from a let me use my words, from a strategic marketing perspective, like, you know, when you're looking at the top of the funnel, like kind of breaking things down piece by piece, when is it appropriate to kind of step in and bridge that gap between the more like broad message through social media versus the more targeted, more personal messages through SMS?
Yeah, love it. So I actually think that like you have to look at it again in a funnel perspective. And it really, the way I look at it, it's like top of the funnel, you're 90% social media, maybe like 5%. So 95.5, right? Like 5% SMS. Maybe you're like having some people scan a QR code. That's a really cool thing we see where they'll blast out a QR code, whether it's on a billboard or a Facebook post, and have people scan it, and it'll automatically craft a text with a keyword that all they have to do is hit send. And then they're automatically enrolled in your SMS campaign, which is like brilliant, I think. So you're at the top. It's like social media. You're establishing that rapport. You're another huge thing that we see is like you have to etch out your target market, follow up. I think what we do a really good job with as well is offer like a huge integration suite. So you're able to track all these campaigns. So moving down from top of the funnel to middle of the funnel, when you start to use SMS a little bit more, maybe 50-50 at that point.
You're gathering some information at that point too. Like you're starting to understand what their desires are, maybe what some of their pain points are, what they're responsive to even. I think that's good data to go off of.
Yeah, exactly. And from that point too, you can like track in your CRM through integration, which is really cool, I think, and we use it really heavily. And then you really want to like leverage personalization, localized targeting, really understand who you're talking to, whether it is like, a middle funnel social media campaign or middle funnel SMS campaign. That resonates for both, right? And so like really that's who you're talking to as your end user. And then, throughout the lower you get in the funnel, the more you're pushing an SMS solution over social media. Like social media has done its job. It's time for SMS to take it from here kind of deal, with that immediacy and that engagement. So yeah. And then I think somebody said something about post sales, like post sale. Oh, it was regard to leaving reviews. But one thing that we see SMS being huge and is growing is post sale. So like ensuring like activation or and even if it's not a sale, right? It's like after X happens, SMS from there, I think really, really helps engagement and helping them stay engaged with your brand, which is cool.
Yeah. And activation can mean so many different things, but I think that's a really key point. Like making sure, are they using the product? Are they happy with the product? Are they getting the most out of it? Do they need support in getting the most out of it? Like from our standpoint, we offer a service called Cloud Certification, where we actually go in and help you and your team get fully certified on the product, making sure that it's making the most, driving the most revenue for your business. And I think something like text messaging that could follow up with that could be a powerful way to drive that activation, because sometimes I feel like maybe customers don't always know it exists. So I think there's a cool opportunity there to, whatever activation means for you, I think that can also just drive the satisfaction up for the services or products that you're offering.
100%. Yep. Really agree.
Cool. So the last thing I want to touch on, and we won't spend a ton of time here because I know we're coming up to the end, but it's just like, if you're a marketing agency and you really want to build like a software as a service, a SaaS like enterprise suite, and we do have some customers that do this, this is a really cool opportunity to be able to build a customized and powerful overall product of different applications or software in one seamless location. This is great for resellers as well, because it allows you to, find other marketers, other agencies, freelancers that can come in. But being able to like embed these types of products into your existing, if it's a CRM or like some kind of dashboard, this is a really cool way to do that. Again, going back to our build or buy guide, with at a very, very low cost. I mean, you can rapidly spin up in weeks or a month to get some of these services embedded. So I just want to give you a chance to kind of, have you had any experiences with folks trying to embed TextUs into their existing, suite, CRM, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how's that going?
100%. I mean, they're one of the largest ATS systems out there. TextUs powers their SMS, right? And so we see that actually a fair amount, and it's definitely a growing part of the business because it is just so effective, right? You don't have to worry about all the overhead. Like customer support comes, a lot of times can come back through TextUs, or at least throughout like our content, which is really helpful. They have no dev effort, like really, and so they can just kind of like come to market with this like insanely powerful and important tool, and having, if you want, you could do it within a week, right? Like you can get up and running within a week because you aren't spending all that time on the development. So we see it. I mean, we see it growing more and more. And I'm curious, do you guys see it as well? Like just continue to grow that space?
Yeah, and it's really exciting too, because you're able to pick and choose, what you want, and being
Mhm.
able to, if you have a solid platform, like why not use somebody else's proven, tested, secure, reliable, continuously supported product, instead of trying to build your own from scratch, which is just like, even for the like simplest of apps, software apps, I mean, it could easily cost 6 figures to develop, and that's going to take at least a year, of time to get
Yeah.
that started. So it is something that we're seeing a lot more of, and just want to, as we try and cultivate our own marketing agencies that are our customers, we want to make sure they're aware of the ability to do this.
Mhm.
If you're building your own suite of services and you have some kind of dashboard or centralized place where you operate, this is a great way to just integrate all of this seamlessly into one spot and take care of all of your marketing tasks in one fell swoop.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Deb asks, "Hey Deb, would this be branded for my client's brand or branded as their brand? A bit confused on what we're offering here. Can you at least comment from the TextUs side?"
Yeah. I mean, it could be both, right? Like you could approach it in a way where you are, if I guess it kind of depends on like what business it is, right? But more often than not, we would see you slap your own brand, like you place your own brand over and be able to sell it that way. But it can go both ways as well. Like there are like reseller type agencies, right, where they're selling the products, but at the end of the day, it's more often your brand than not, right? That's mostly going to be the use case.
Yeah. And so I know Deb personally, so I might be able to chime in a little bit more. So if you want to, set up accounts for your client, white labeled as their brand, just like with Cloud Campaign, that's an option.
Mhm.
But if you also wanted to keep it under your brand, like Content Fresh, that's also an option too. So I guess that's kind of a cop-out answer. Like it can be both. But
Yeah.
I also think that speaks to the power of the flexibility of being able
Mhm.
to build whatever fits your business model the best.
Yeah.
So hopefully we answered your question there.
Mhm.
Let us know if you need anything else from us. Deb follows up with, ultimately the customer will see the brand that they need to see, and that is accurate. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I know we went over a little bit, so I apologize. We probably don't have time for a Q&A, but if you do have any questions, feel free to email us. You can email me at cbrowning@cloudcampaign.com or michael@textus.com. We'll type those into the chat real quick, so you can get those questions in. Give me a second. Typing and talking is hard. All right. And as I mentioned, we will be sending a follow-up with the re-recorded webinar version of this, so you can go back and relive and savor every moment of our conversation, along with the handouts that we shared, the slides that Michael also so graciously prepared for us. Thank you so much for that. And now that we're finished, I do want to revisit our poll. we had 88% of our audience today not using text messaging within their agency. So what that shows us is that there's an opportunity to build out your service portfolio along with social media marketing as very complementary services to increase the efficacy of your sales and marketing funnel.
Yeah.
Michael, before we take off, where can people find you? Where can people get started with TextUs? Let us know.
Yeah, for sure. I think honestly that for any questions, michael@textus.com is easy. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Michael Foster. If you want to connect, I'm always happy to link with marketers, of course. Textus.com, very easy name. As you can imagine, our SEO is pretty good. And so just textus.com to get a convo started. But yeah, honestly, I'd love if you just emailed me and just could learn a little bit more about the business. If we could help, great. And if not, I mean, I always have a fun time meeting people and talking marketing. So yeah, Chris, this has been fun, man.
Michael, thank you so much for carving out some time. And again, everyone, super sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning. Thank you so much for your patience. And we really hope this webinar has at least given you some new opportunities, some new avenues to explore as you grow your marketing agency and build out your services and try and bring home some more cheddar. That's our goal. All right, everyone, we will catch you next month.
See y'all.
Bye.